Hello, welcome to our channel. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's episode, we will talk about American serial killer Ted Bundy, his personality, his crime methods, and the possible motives behind his crimes. Ted Bundy was an average-looking man. He had a university degree and was very knowledgeable about psychology, law, and criminology. He was convicted of at least 30 murders in 7 states across the United States between 1974 and 1978. One of biographers writing about him described him as a sadistic sociopath. Experts classified him as an organized serial killer. Before telling about his crimes and the reasons that pushed him to commit serial murder, let's go back to where the whole story began. Ted Bundy was born in Bullrington, Vermont on November 24, 1946. He was raised by his grandparents, whom he thought to be his parents, until his teenage years. His emotionally unavailable mother did not have a close relationship with Ted Bundy. Bundy had a bright future as a student. After graduating from college in 1965, he was admitted to the University of the Puget Sound, where he studied for a year, then transferred to the University of Washington. He began studying Chinese. He left college in early 1968 and worked in various jobs. At that time, he began burgling houses and stealing from stores. He also began volunteering at the Seattle office of Nelson Rockefeller's presidential campaign. In the mid-1970s, he worked as a driver and bodyguard for Arthur Fletcher during the latter's campaign for lieutenant governor of Washington State. Bundy enrolled again at the University of Washington, this time for a bachelor's degree in psychology. He received a financial honors degree, which was praised by his professors. That summer, Bundy became a local hero by saving a 3.5-year-old girl who fell into a lake. In 1971, he started working at the Suicide Emergency Telephone Support Center in Seattle. During this period, he started to exhibit strange behaviors. He started manipulating people around him. He was also intensely interested in sexually explicit magazines and cheap crime magazines. In her book, The Stranger Beside Me, Ann Rule wrote that she met Ted Bundy while he was working in Seattle, describing him as a good person, adding that Bundy had asked her about the copies of detective magazines and true crime stories, especially about rape. At the same time, his girlfriend had rubber surgical gloves in his room and handcuffs in the trunk of his car. After graduating from Washington University in 1972, Bundy joined Governor Evans' election campaign, and later, Evans appointed Bundy to the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. Bundy was appointed as an aide to Republican Party Chairman Rose Davidson in Washington. Thanks to his likability, he became well respected among politicians and the police. Bundy enrolled at the University of Utah Law School in 1974. He started his serial murders. He would approach young girls, usually disguised as an undercover police officer, and kidnap them and kill them. The victims that Bundy raped after killing them were between the ages of 12 and 26. The sadistic Bundy, who became a nightmare for young women in the 1970s, killed at least 30 young women. Bundy killed those around him. Thanks to his ability to look like an ordinary person and adapt to the environment, he could easily gain the trust of his victims and attack them unexpectedly. At the same time, he could leave no trace behind and deceive the authorities. Bundy managed to escape from the police several times until he was caught in Florida in 1978. After his detention, instead of pleading guilty, Bundy gave a series of interviews from prison cell, speaking mostly in third person to avoid confession, and delved into details of his crimes and thought processes. He was telling all the details about the murders and the serial killer's mentality. While he enthusiastically described the terrible crimes he committed and replayed them in his mind, he belittled the police. In one of his interviews, Bundy described what was going through the mind of the serial killer as follows. He didn't want a girl to hesitate about going to his place with him, and at the same time he was afraid that she would start thinking about what to do if he got excited or lost his concentration or betrayed her in some way. There has to be a balance, almost like playing a role. It was not difficult. The more an actor plays the role, the better he would be in that role, the more he would tend to feel himself in that role and do things more spontaneously. Bundy was of high opinion of himself. He believed that he was smarter and stronger than the police who were after him. He never showed any expression of remorse for any of the murders he committed. It's not known why he became a serial killer. It is difficult to give an answer, but there are some factors that led to Bundy's violent behavior. A first factor may be Bundy's troubled childhood. Born from an extramarital affair, Bundy was raised by his grandparents and was told that his mother was his older sister. Bundy's mother was emotionally unstable, a psychological problem that was reflected on Bundy. He was a pathological liar and frequently manipulated those around him. He lied about his past and achievements at every opportunity, and he often changed his appearance to avoid being caught. Some experts claim that his perversions stemmed from his exposure to sexually explicit and inappropriate content at a very young age. Being exposed to publications containing sexual violence and fantasies at a young age and forming fantasies about them may be one of the reasons for the murders he would commit in the future. The method that Ted Bundy used in his murders, very importantly the mode, was to somehow deceive young women, put them in his car, take them to deserted places, and attack them. He chose his victims from among young and attractive women with long and dark hair parted in the middle. The police listed the similarities between Bundy's victims as follows: long hair parted in the middle, white skin, thin, attractive body, young girls who hung out alone and wore jeans. All of his victims disappeared at night. No physical evidence of them remained after the attack. Bundy often approached his victims in public spaces such as college campuses and used his good looks to gain his victims' trust. He sometimes wore an arm or leg cast or used crutches to make himself look weak. He was driving 1968 Volkswagen with the front passenger seat and front door handle removed. He was kidnapping his victims in this vehicle. After taking his victims to a deserted area, he would often knock them out or immobilize them with handcuffs. Then he would kill and rape them. To end the lives of his victims, he would deal a fatal blow with a hard object or strangle them. Bundy engaged in necrophilia after killing his victims. He was having sexual intercourse with their corpses again days later. Bundy's mood changed over time, and his attacks began to become more sudden and violent. Ted Bundy's identity was determined after a long and difficult investigation. Bundy committed murders in different states in the 1970s. The authorities did not cooperate closely between the states. Bundy managed to escape because they did not have a regular database. Moreover, the technology used by forensic medicine in the 1970s was too primitive to identify the perpetrator. DNA tests were not performed. Investigators were collecting and analyzing evidence with primitive methods. Lack of a central database where criminal records and other forensic information of people who committed crimes in different states would be gathered was preventing the investigators from finding the murderer. Thanks to being extremely intelligent and charismatic, Bundy could easily make himself accepted in different environments. He seduced women and made it very difficult for the police to catch him because he did not do anything suspicious in his daily life. He was stopped by police officer David Lee in Florida as his car lamp was broken. The police officer realized that Bundy resembled the suspected serial killer. Inspecting his car trunk, the police officer found robbery tools, a balaclava, gloves, and other suspicious materials. Bundy was arrested and accused of kidnapping and murdering a 12-year-old girl. He was later convicted of this murder and sentenced to death. Bundy jumped from the second floor of the courthouse and escaped to the mountainous area, was caught again after 6 days. Bundy's second escape was from Colorado prison on December 30, 1977. He then was transferred to Aspen for the preliminary hearing. Bundy escaped again through the hole by removing the lamp on the ceiling of his cell and using the key. He reached his room, and from there he walked out freely. After being on the run for more than a month, Bundy was caught in Florida. During his second escape, he was on FBI's most wanted list. Bundy was executed in the electric chair in Florida prison on January 24, 1989. Bundy described himself as the only person with a doctorate in the field of serial murder. In one of his interviews in prison, he explained his view on crimes as follows. Society believes that it can identify evil or bad or harmful people. But this is not practical. There are no stereotypes. Only some people are more psychologically prepared for failure than others. He could easily blend in with society. He could easily persuade those around him and seduce his victims. All these factors enabled him to commit more than 30 murders, becoming one of the most dangerous serial killers in history.